Hey guys, I am back. For some of you guys might recognize this background, but you already know what time of the season it is. But for today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys how to survive the holidays of toxic family. Y'all, I am a pro at this, and so I hope you guys that this will help you as a guide, as we enter the Burr months, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, let's get into this video. Alrighty, so once again, not to say that always the problem was them. I will admit there's been some moments that I have been the problem. I will own up to that. You know what I'm saying? And I've worked on myself, and I'm still constantly working on myself every single day. And I think a part of everything that I went through that I reiterate all the time to you guys is when you truly turn your life over to Christ. I haven't to the extent that I've wanted to, or at least been consistently in his word and praying, and because sometimes it's hard, and I feel like I've idolized a lot of stuff. But I feel like through those points in my life, especially being in that position and still a minor, so being under the care of them, once I really started getting into my spiritual journey, I really leaned on Christ a lot when I was faced with situations when I couldn't get out of them, and I'd be stuck with my family on vacations that I didn't even want to go to. And that might sound I don't know, what is the word, bougie, or entitled, you don't want to go on vacation. But it's why would you want to go on vacation and be stuck in a place where you can't really escape, and you're with your family, and it's there's no other way, unless you can get a ticket to take yourself to find myself back down to Atlanta. It's you just kind of have to thug it out, and it kind of sucks in that sense, because there's been multiple situations when I've clearly expressed not interest of not going on the trips, and my parents are no, you gotta go, family and this and that. And I get that, and I get it, oh yeah, family bonding time. But it wasn't even about the point that I didn't want to bond. It's that when we tried to, something would always erupt. And I don't blame my siblings for it, but I think definitely a lot of the issues arose because of my dad, and how even little things, so it's just I remember one time I went on a trip to Arizona, and it was this is one of the hugest moments that happened, that I tried using with my emancipation case, but they didn't really care about. But it was this huge incident, and it's just what am I supposed to do? And it was just awful. And it's I just had to sit there and endure it through. You're literally in the hotel room. We had 2 separate rooms too, but we were in the hotel room, and it's just I can't just walk outside, because first of all, we were in Arizona, and I think we were in one of the more I'd say more dangerous areas, because we were literally watching the news, and there was stuff happening, even so one of those special vans that move the special that investigate the bodies or whatever, I forgot what it's called, but passed by us. And I was scared in that area though, there was enough that I had seen that my parents were telling me about, that I was just yeah. So when that stuff arose, it was just what am I supposed to do? When I was back in Atlanta, it's okay, something happened. And I know I showed this in my last story about forgiving my parents, but I remember there was one time kind of going back to the story, but if something would happen, okay, I'm gonna go to the store, or I'm gonna go to my friend's house. But it was I didn't have that freedom over here. I can't drive the rental car because I'm not 25 years old. I'm not an adult, so it's not I can just leave without them knowing where I'm at and just travel back there somehow, because I did have money. But it's and it's just a lot of factors, and it's just you just have to sit there, and it sucks, and I know there's different aspects of toxic families during the holidays. For me, that's the whole trip situation. But even at home during dinners and all, I've had some family members instigate stuff with my parents, and then it's just a whole chaos, or just a whole just a whole mess. And I get it, whatever degree it is, I get it, and it sucks, especially it was just you're just trying to eat your food, or you're just trying to open up your gifts, or just enjoy the holidays. And it's just dang, why does it have to be this for real? But when I thought about this this topic, like literally straight that came to my mind, the only thing that it could really come to my mind. And you guys probably already know what I'm gonna say, and I reiterate it all the time, but literally guys, this is a Christian channel, and so I'm gonna be relating to God all the time that I can. But basically, the first thought that I thought of was one time, like this is literally my senior year of school, and I don't want to specify who because like I was just told a few things a few days ago, and so I guess, you know, we're good. But basically, me and them were just low-key going at it. We were just, this is me, this is them, we were butting heads, right? And I was just so fed up. I was just like, I can't stand this anymore. And like, I remember I used to talk about it with, you know, my friends a lot and just be like, yeah, this X and X, Y, Z, and you know, like all this stuff. And honestly, like, gossiping gets you nowhere. And it was more of, I feel like it was more venting, but then it turned into gossiping 100%. And so like venting, it was good to let it out, but then like just like gossiping about it and talking about it longer than it needs to be like even spoken about, even though they were serious things, mind you, it was serious things, it was just still like, it just really got us nowhere. And it was just like, still the next day I would have to go through the same thing. This isn't somebody like in my family, this is like somebody else in my family, but I remember it, you know, I was doing something that I loved, right? And I was just like, I just cannot let them take away my love for this because they are acting this certain way and don't want to, like, they're just making it more harder for me to do what I have, like, they're just making it more harder for me. And so basically what I did is, the first thing I ran to other people, of course, but just one time I was just so upset and I just ran to God about it, and I was like, Lord, like, please just talk to their heart, you know, and just even for my heart too, because, you know, we could pray for us, but we also need to be like, you know, to humbling ourselves, like, you know, maybe make me slow to anger and more leaning to understand, to try to, like, you know, compromise the person 100%. And I remember I just prayed that, like, you know, to work in the relationship with them, and that I was just tired, and I just really gave that to God. And truly in that moment, like, when I tell you the next day, now the next night everything was not perfect, let me get that clear, but I could definitely see that the Lord was definitely moving, you know, even if he does like something small, it's still like, the matter of fact, like, he is moving, y'all. He is like, he is working in our lives. You know, as I reflect on that moment, it definitely kind of just ties into like the whole toxic family thing. Like, once again, like, you know, you can vent about it, of course, and if it's annoying to like your siblings or to your parents or to whoever who is siding to you about it, but once it gets to like the gossiping point, it's just like, why, like, you know, where's this gonna get us to, you know? Maybe if it's just like a yearly thing, then it's just like, but it's just like, still, I mean, like, at some point you're gonna get tired with it. I know, like, there is just like this little family drama, like, or like, oh yeah, this person's always like this or whatever, like, all the time. How about instead of like, you know, like, criticizing or like even, you know, feeding into more and just like indulging or instigating more, yada yada yada, just like, it's stuff, just how about we just run to God just as much as we're running to other people to talk about the situation? Because like, honestly, you know, sometimes, well, at least for me, like, when I would hear the gossip, like, yes, like the gossip is like interesting, like, oh, this family member did this and this and that, and regardless if it's about you or if it's not, it's just like, it just doesn't feel good though sometimes, you know, like gossiping about people, even if it's people like, I don't, you know, half my family like that for real, because especially the past few years after my grandma passed, I don't really go to Florida anymore, and especially after the whole situation. But even in general, like, you know, whether or not I seem like, it's just like not a good thing to gossiping. And I know that's something that I'm for sure trying to work on, is to vent and to not gossip. And I can understand, like, you know, just sometimes it can be hard, and sometimes it's just hard, especially like if your whole family's downstairs, it's just like, you know, all gossiping about these things. But at the end of the day, like, you know, the goal is to strive to be more like Christ. And, you know, he went through the world, and I literally just heard this phrase yesterday, and it was just so, like, it was such a good reminder. He overcame the world, and so can we. Like, we are so much greater than our flesh to be, you know, desiring to do these things like that our flesh wants us to do, like indulging in gossip, and we could just like turn an ear and eat our food because there's a lot of great food sitting there on the counter waiting for people to start eating instead of talking up, you know what I'm saying? Or even like as we respond to people who are personally mean to us, or we may have perceived it to come across a different way, almost like that story I told you. And it's like, you know, Jesus was persecuted all the time and people made it hard for him, you know, but at the end of the day, like, he didn't retaliate in a way. It was like more of like peaceful, you know, efforts, and that's just a lot, you know, of his character. And you know, it's something that I definitely want to work on, like responding to people in certain situations differently than I used to before. Because I won't lie, like I used to definitely be more, I guess maybe like more violent, or like more like angry, and if it makes sense. Like I wouldn't hit people or just like, yeah, like lashing out in that sense, but I would definitely talk so much like mess and just be like, you know, yell at them and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna tell this person off. And like at the end of the day, like you can do all that stuff, but it just doesn't feel good. And I remember one time I did it to somebody that meant so much to me, and I remember the next, it was either the next day or either that night, like after I'd done it, I was just like, dang, like, you know, like that's not a good representation of myself, and that's not what I want to become, like, you know what I'm saying? And so I think it's just definitely important just to, you know, just be mindful, you know, of ourselves in the situation. And I feel like if we're slow to anger, we can recognize when it's happening, so that we can just be like, no, like snap out of it, snap out of Yolanda, like you gotta stop. Because at the end of the day, like, oh my gosh, okay, another like really good thing that I heard today that I really like, that I want to start thinking about more, is just to, like, you know, as we get closer to God, we're gonna be more judgmental. And I think that is just such the reality of it. Because I know like a lot of people are just like, yeah, like, you know, like people that are religious and this and that, they have like bad experiences because people are just so judgmental. But when you think about it, when you're living counterculturally, it's like you see the world in a different sense. So when somebody is doing something else that doesn't align with what you're doing, then it's just like, oh, like, you know what I'm saying? Not to justify it. Yes, 100% judging others is wrong, because once again, judging others, but we got a whole lot of work to work on ourselves. We just really need to check ourselves, you know? It's gonna be hard, you know, living counterculture. It's something that I definitely struggle with, because I think definitely because I maybe don't surround myself by a lot more Christians, or not just like the Sunday Christians, but like the people that actually live the lifestyle, you know, if I want to align myself to be more like. And I just definitely think that like there's just always something to work on in yourselves. And just for me, like, I know like just the way I respond to things, like it definitely can be better. And so I really challenge you guys, you know, to really reflect, you know, the way we respond to things. Maybe this is something you don't struggle with, you know, with toxic family and as such, and you don't have to worry about all the extra gossip, or if things are actually like, you know, happening with you and another person contending. But I really encourage you guys to run to God. This is my challenge for this holidays, is to run to God. And then maybe, you know, if you want to vent a little bit, for like vent to other people a little bit for like instant like advice, or just like, you know, seeing if you're not crazy or not, and then that's just like, you know, like, okay, but don't go too crazy, don't be gossiping, because y'all, we need to live like God is right beside us. Because, you know, at the end of the day, like, I'd rather please God more than people, you feel me? And so yeah, that's pretty much, you know, like how to honestly, like my thoughts about like how to really survive the holidays with toxic family or friends, or whoever you might be surrounded by.